All right, so we are live here on episode 6 of the Rob Anderson Show. Today we have my good friend David Cohen, who I met a few years ago. David, thanks for coming on. How are you doing today?
Really good. Really good. Can I correct you? It was just a couple months ago,
What did I
but it
say?
feels like years.
Did I say years?
Yeah.
Sorry, totally. Yeah, a couple of months. Well, it feels like years because we've really. I talk to you more. We do our weekly calls almost, and
Yeah.
so we've been chatting. It feels like a long time. So
I
sorry.
know. I know. But you
Uh,
know what? I think just in this environment that we're in, like everything seems like time is like, it seems like so long ago when this mess started to happen, back on, for me, it was like March the 12th, right? So,
yeah.
yeah, it was like of 2020. So it seems like so long ago, and yet it's gone so quickly. So
Yeah, exactly. It's weird. It's almost like a time warp, and
yeah,
it feels different. But so thanks for coming on. So everybody, to kind of give you a little background on David and how we met. So David is an author, entrepreneur, public speaker. I met him through our mutual friend Carl Stedman. So we're working together on a thing that we kind of Carl started called the Quantum Lounge, and we've been, having weekly calls with that. And then also David invited me to his entrepreneur series you had a few weeks ago.
yeah, on mental health. Yeah.
Yeah, so I attended that, and that was wonderful. So thank you so much. So
Great.
just kind
Oh,
of give us a little background to who you are and how you got here, I guess.
I got here because my mom and dad, I don't want to hear about it because I still don't think that happened. But
Yeah, no.
anyway,
Find a happy place.
yeah, talk to the hand. Um, so yeah, uh, we were talking beforehand. I'm from Ottawa originally and moved to Toronto and, um, just did the school thing, the university thing,
What'd
business
you take?
admin. I took business admin to start, and then I worked for a few years, and I went, I gotta answer the bell here, and the bell for me was broadcasting.
Oh, cool.
And I went back to school as a mature student for radio, television, journalism, and that was it. Like that was a career. It's still in me. It's
Yeah.
still in me. But yeah, so I was in more advertising, marketing, promotions, and then got into teaching, training, and coaching. And I work with entrepreneurial startups, and I love it. Yeah, I've written
Yeah.
a book about it, two books, and did a radio show. That's how I met Carl, doing radio show for small business for 9 seasons. And Carl was in Durham region, and
Yeah.
I was teaching in Durham and doing the show at CKDO in Oshawa, and we met. You just get around.
Yeah, it's just strange the way, and I'm happy
No,
that we all met. Well, and Carl kind of brought us all together because
yeah, I
Carl,
did.
yeah, and Carl, he reached out to me. He saw me on a Nicholas Vignamin's show, which is, so it's just strange. It's not like we met from any event here in Toronto. Like Nicholas is from the UK, and Carl, I guess, watches his show as well. So he saw me on that show and reached out to me on Facebook,
It's wild.
and and then yeah, we just, it was just we kind of clicked and said, let's jump on a call this Tuesday, and so we just kind of checking in every week, and he was telling me what he had going on in his life, and same, and I was, telling him about what was going on with me, and told me about the Quantum Lounge, and then here we are, and so everybody out there who's listening. We started having a weekly call on Sundays, and we've changed it to Mondays now that the weather's a lot nicer. But for me and what's been going on in the past year with COVID and everything, meeting with you guys every Sunday, it's like it's been so therapeutic on so many levels. Even if even if we didn't do anything else with it, and it was just a weekly check-in, I think that's healthy. But I think it's going to be so
Yeah.
much more than that. And did you talk to Carl yesterday at all?
Not yesterday, but earlier in the week, Monday.
Oh, because he got some really interesting news yesterday, so I'll let him tell you. But
Okay.
oh yeah, so he actually had to sit down with the people at the radio station, so he's got some really interesting stuff and an offer from
Yeah, it's
them.
really expanding. He had 56,000 listeners, and they want to make it a TV show. And
Yeah, I think they're going to offer him
yeah,
a TV
good.
show. So he called me yesterday, and yeah, so it's really taken off. And so David, I guess what do you do those? The entrepreneur. What was it called exactly?
Oh, the little series we did.
Yeah.
It was called Mental Health Symposium for Entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
That's yeah.
because, like, and you're an entrepreneur too, so to speak, and these times have really affected us. I mean, businesses are closed. What direction do I take? You know what? I don't even feel like doing anything some days. It's like you go through a range of emotions that where you can be up and down a little bit, and for some it's really hit them hard because they have lost stores or their livelihood, or they've had to close the doors,
Yeah.
and that's tragic. I feel
Yeah.
that it's gotten this far, and I don't see any movement from the government in terms of, don't worry, we're going to take care of you. We have a vision for the future. I just seem to hear that stupid narrative over and over again. And I'm older than you, and I'm seeing it. I feel it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we got to stop and think, like, what's the human cost here? Where are we going? What are we going to do? How are we going to, what are we going to create moving forward, rather than being stuck in this dialogue? I remember I went through a marriage breakup years ago, and all I talked about was the marriage breakup and how bad it was, and yada yada yada, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a point in my life, like in that time, I think maybe a year and a half in, and I went, you know what? I'm tired of the story.
Yeah.
I'm tired of telling this story,
Yeah.
because I'm not that story. There's other things to think about, and I think that's what we need to be, calling on our elected officials
Yeah.
to start to dream and imagine again. And what are we going to make Ontario be moving forward? Or because
Yeah. No,
truly, I don't see a lot of hope and initiative and possibility.
well, I totally agree with you, and that not only extends, like I have, it's I'm not the person who likes to get political, but
Here
now
too.
we have to. There's
Yeah.
no option. Our livelihood, our civil rights are being removed. Now it's time to step up, and there's a lot going on out there, and it's yeah. I agree with you. I don't see a lot of high end conversations. Like, I watched some joke of a presentation yesterday from Justin Trudeau. Like, the guy's, to me, he's just a clown. Like, he's a puppet, and he's just talking about, oh yeah, I got the vaccine, and ha ha ha. He's like, go out there and convince other people to go get it. If you have your crusty uncle, he said crusty uncle, he's like, he's like, you got to really encourage them to go get it. And I was like, this is just, it's almost like we're living in this twilight zone. It's like, am I really watching this?
I
We're
know.
watching the leader of a country give medical advice to the mass population of 30 million people, saying, go get this vaccination. It's like, okay, Hitler, like, sorry, buddy. No, you know?
It's like that. I commented on Facebook the other day that 500 frontline service workers were at the Leaf game the other night.
Yeah.
Um, and spoiler alert, if you didn't know, they lost the Leafs. Um, again,
That doesn't
uh,
surprise me.
yeah, well, no, because Leaf stands for losers even after 54 seasons. So just in case
Yeah,
you didn't.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad you figured that one out.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you know what Montreal has that the Leafs don't have?
What?
A colored picture of the last time they were in the Stanley Cup. But I digress. I noticed that each of those workers had masks on, and I'm going, wait a minute. They're frontline workers. They've all been inoculated. Why are they still wearing masks?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why? Like, well,
And
you have a chance of still getting it.
and two masks now. It's just like, it's been absolutely ridiculous, and it's hard not to think that there's some other agenda. And whether or not, I don't like to get too caught up in conspiracy theory, because
Mhm.
you could just go down the other opposite side of it, and so, but like you said, there's just no high level conversation. It's being, our country's being run like a dictatorship. And I watched something, I got a lot of respect for Randy Hillier. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
familiar
I
with
saw a
him.
video that he posted the other day
And
about
yeah, and he talked about how they
vote.
passed something
Yeah,
through without the proper vote, and
yeah.
like, there's just a lot of government overreach happening right now. And yeah, so it's nice, like you said, some days, like, I have hope that, like, for some reason it's like, okay, well, it can't get any worse, but some days it does feel bleak, because it's
Mm,
like a roller coaster, and today I'm
yeah.
hopeful, but like, you got to take the news in small doses, right? And it's like, because if we're all sitting there on the edge of our seat, living in fear, waiting for what Justin Trudeau or Doug Ford says, and for me, like we chatted before, like my businesses and my life fell apart 2 years ago. Like, kind of also, it was like this is just the icing on the cake. And sure, I lost a few gigs that I had lined up with, clients and friends, and then the clients that I did have didn't, they don't have the budgets now. So it's a ripple effect, right? And it's easy to for people that weren't affected by it. I'm grateful that I didn't have a company that was like a restaurant or something and I had to lay people off. Like it was kind of just me, and but I've heard of family and friends losing their, yeah, it's just crazy out there. So it's like, how do we focus on the good when it doesn't seem like even our government is, right?
Yeah, and I think we have to be the good.
Yeah.
It's like it's up to us, the individual, to start to create and come together and collaborate and create new systems, new ways of being, new ways of doing work, new ways of doing business, new ways of exchanging, monies,
Yeah.
and we have to be the ones, because clearly, to me, I've had my doubts about the system for years, that it's not working, and it's really skewed. Even my namesake, the late Leonard Cohen. So he sang a song called oh, I forget. It was about, like, every like the dice are loaded. There's a fix on.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
everybody knows that's the song, and we've always known intuitively, and now it's like how can you not see what's going on, and see there's an underpinning that doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
and I don't get, like, why people aren't sort of being alerted to this more so. Why are we just taking it as and trusting?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
we
you know
have to
what?
question.
Yeah, and I agree. And you know what? Like that's why I'm very conscious of who I speak with and what I talk about, because some people are on different levels, or some people come at it from their own level of awareness. But I don't know if you've ever read the book. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island.
No.
But it's so yeah, it's a very interesting book, and it's about how the fractional reserve banking system was created, and how it's all about bailouts and inflation, and basically it's like just gobbles everything up. It builds it up and then crashes it and keeps on doing that. And it's like now we're at a place like here in Canada, like from the research I've done, like not the Income Tax Act, like income tax is it was a war tax which was put into place in 1917, and it was never abolished. And now the highest tax rate in Canada is just absolutely ridiculous. Like how much longer are we going to go? Because if we go up the same pattern from 100 years ago, in 100 years we're going to be giving the government all our money, and they're going to be telling us, like, you know what I mean? If it might even be sooner than that, because that's the pattern that's happening right now. Like it's just on a massive scale. And corporations, it's so easy for corporations to just hide in tax shelters. So and it's just, yeah, I think I totally agree. And I've always been skeptical of the system. I took commerce, and it's like it was hard working with my parents who worked in the capital markets, because I was like, I looked at, that's when I did the numbers, and like, you go back in history and it's like, well, why do we have this unnecessary inflation, and who's it benefiting? It's only benefiting the really, really rich people, because when there's a market crash, everything goes on sale. So that's why the main, there's only a few companies that own everything. And why is it right now that all the big box retailers are able to be open? Well, because they're all owned by the same group of multinational conglomerates.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I read a post someone made on Facebook yesterday, saying that the middle class, or the worker, has lost over, I think, $37 billion, yet those rich, Jeff Bezos and so
Yeah.
on and so forth, have gained $39 billion in
Yeah.
value. So it's like something's not right, and it's not felt right for a long time. Did
Yeah.
you see the movie The Big Short?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a scam, and at the end of it, these two Wall Street clowns were saying, "Well, what are we going to do next? What's our next scam?" Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and that's the thing. I bet you that's there's another one of those brewing. And like, I don't like to be a doomsday prophesizer, because I haven't hope, but like, I talk with people about timelines, and timelines shift. Like everything, there's there's everybody, we're all going through the day making different decisions, and like, the difference to stay with your girlfriend or not, like, you said you're going through a divorce, like that changes your whole outcome of life, and we're all collectively co-creating this earth. So there's so many variables at play. But yeah, it seems like right now that, you know, I, I don't know where, like, we all search for truth in our own way, and we all have a little piece of it, right? And I think we've all got a little piece of the puzzle. But I think that, yeah, it's just, it's becoming, when's it going to become too ridiculous? And I kind of share that, Canada, it was nice to live in Canada because we're all sweet and kind and sorry, and, but now it's like, there's a lot of people that it's like, wow, like there's not very many people that really seem to care to stand up for themselves. And people are so distracted that nobody really knows about how the system works, or how this, and everybody just thinks, oh, that's just the way it works. We got to pay for like all this overtaxation, where it's become parasitic. Like there's models that show that we probably only really need to work on sales tax or very small tax, and maybe tax corporations more, but like for personal income and stuff like that. And that's the thing. Like I used to work at a mutual fund company, and they also sold flow through shares for mining and oil stocks. And so if you were an accredited investor, made over 200 grand a year, you could basically pay no taxes because you could invest in the tax shelter and bring your income down to zero. So it's just the rich getting richer. So you're penalized for being poor, because it doesn't make sense to be invest in those things unless you're in the highest tax bracket, right? Because as you get in lower tax brackets, the benefits reduce, right? So it's like the system's rigged against the people, and
Yeah.
it's not, there's nothing for we the people anymore. So I'm really interested to see what's going on down south. I think it's going to happen there first before it comes up here. But I have friends from all over the world, and they say it's like, they're like, you guys aren't getting biased news or unbiased news in North America, because all the companies, it's owned by the same six companies. So it's like people outside of Canada and the US have a better picture of what's going on over here. And it's like people in Canada don't realize the tyranny that's going on inside. They're just like, oh, it's fine. Like, like I don't know. It's crazy to me though.
It is, and it is crazy making,
Yeah.
and there's some days you just lose hope. It's
Yeah.
like, why am I bothering? How am I gonna? How do we? And maybe it's not our mess to fight. Maybe we just have to. Like I used to play hockey, right? And you
Yeah.
probably did too as a kid.
Yeah.
And I played defense. I was left defense, and it's like, all I could take care of was my part of the rink.
Yeah.
I couldn't go play center.
Yeah.
I couldn't go play right wing because I was way past my pay grade, being a left defenseman. I had to take care of this part of the rink, the left
Yeah.
part of the rink from the blue line to my goalie. And that's all you can handle. So I think if we all do our part to raise the vibe and the consciousness, and take care of our own self, and not in a selfish way, but in a selfless way, if we take care of ourselves, to keep our vibe high, to surround ourselves with good people like we do with the Quantum Lounge, take care of our health, go for motorbike rides,
Yeah.
or a rip and dip, as you aptly put it.
Yeah.
I think if we do that, then we're doing a big service. If we're buying into the fear and how it looks, that could change in a heartbeat, and it will. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what, to circle back to what you said about mental health, and I thought it was, that's why I really enjoyed going to that series.
Thanks.
And I was just going to go to the first one, to be honest with you, just to check it out, because I'm, busy and stuff, but I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed it so much. And it was, that's, like, so to, we talked about the bad, let's talk about the good a little bit, the silver linings, because had COVID, all this not happened, you and I might not have met, or at least not right now. We might have, I'm sure eventually maybe our paths would have crossed because we're on kind of similar vibe. But yeah, all the people, we're learning things, and meeting people from all over the world that, like, I think everybody's got a little bit of Zoom fatigue right now. I miss hugging people. I'm a hugger. I'm all about the 20-second hugs, and the, really connecting. Like if you can't give somebody a 20-second hug, I don't think that you should. That's my like my test. It's like, if you can't give somebody a good 20-second hug like a brother, then you shouldn't do business with them.
I agree.
But the silver lining. So how would you say, what are the wins that have come out? Like, what are some of the things that you maybe, when going into it, you didn't really see these little silver linings. What would you say those are the things that you've noticed?
Well, on a silly note, I have an older model car, which I think I put 3,000 kilometers on it this year. So it's lasting longer.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, we talked about time, and I find time in the day just goes like really super fast these days.
Yeah.
Um, but I still want to, it's forced me to look at, really what matters, and doing a project. I'm working on a new project that's I want to move forward on. And it's like, damn the torpedoes, overcome the fear. It doesn't matter anyway. You might as well do it. You have
Yeah.
one life, just live it.
Yeah.
So I think from that point of view, we've all had to come up and bump up against our own mortality in this time, right? And because, oh, well, what if we get sick? What if that person? What if I get COVID? Whatever. I don't think like that.
Yeah.
I do sometimes. I go, in the back of my mind, but I don't let that overrule me.
Yeah.
But when you're kind of faced with your own mortality, we have to look at that and go. I think we really need to look at that as a human race. What's beyond this existence, and while we're here, what can we do to make the world a better place? So I live by a principle in Judaism, and it's called Tikkun Olam, and it means to mend the world. So that our duty in life is to leave the world a better place from the time we come in to the time we leave.
Yeah.
And so, what if we all live like that? It's just really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think we need to look at life like that. I think, and just like, and not about just being me, which we were before COVID hit. It was all like, got to get to work, got to do this, got to get that job, got to get that corner office.
Yeah.
And now our corner office is, our bedroom. you know?
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I noticed, and when you mentioned that, it really resonated with me. Is that we were raised in a society that was one that really not one that I want to leave behind, like, or not leave behind.
You don't want to go back there.
Yeah, I don't want to leave that to the people that come after us. Like, I want to leave that world behind, but we got to create the new thing, because it's the gotta get, where it's like, this has really made me realize that we have so little control over certain things in our life. Like, I was always on the, I like being the kind of guy that's on time or a little bit early and like gets things done and, can be dependable. But there comes a time where that's, I was telling you why, when I lost my thumb, that I let it get too much to me. It's like, you got to get that, or if you don't do this, you're never working this town again, or like, like, it's just like, oh, like, so many deadlines, and does it all really matter? Not so much of it doesn't, right? And we were living at a pace, like I told you about, burning the candle at both ends, and that was just me, and everybody is, it seemed like, it made us really realize what's important. And one of the silver linings, I think, for me is that it gave me a chance to slow down. And it's like, okay, when I was very resistant to it first, and but at some point it's like, okay, well, this is happening. I can't wish it away. If, like, find a happy place, like, it's happening. Like, when it was supposed to be just 2 weeks, and then it was this. So it's like, okay, well, whatever, I'm going for rides on my motorcycle. I'm like, it doesn't affect my summer too much, like, sure. But I really spent the time reading. I read so many books that I never had the chance. So I would, like, basically in my spare time, rather than think about the things that I couldn't do, it was like, okay, just reading. As soon as I was done a book, I picked up another, and either ordered it off Amazon or found the PDF. And that's the great thing. A lot of stuff that's out of like all the classics, anything that's over 50 years old, that's no longer under copyright, you can probably find a free PDF or an online version. So there's no
Cool.
reason. Yeah, so there's no reason for people out there to say, hey, like, you don't need to go to the library there's lots of books out there that are online for free, right?
Yeah.
So that was interesting, and being faced with your own mortality. It's like, that's one thing that I face, kind of why I ride a motorcycle, because, like, there's a little part of it, it's like, it scares me every time, even though I'm uncomfortably comfortable on it usually, like, but I just know that, like, even something as little as, like, a car crossing the line, or an animal running out, like a deer or something, you never know, right? Like, it's just, but then it's like, I'm not going to live in that fear. I'm going to go and do it anyways, and it's like, every time I jump on the bike, there's this little, like, oh my God, it's dangerous. What are you doing? You could lose your life. But I would rather live my life or lose my life doing something that I love so much. Like that's my passion. It's my way to adventure and see the world. And I was telling somebody the other day about when my brother and I were young, we were always bugging my parents to get us a dirt bike or an ATV, and they weren't into that. It just wasn't their thing. So it was like, no, no. And then my parents split up when we were young. So there was a point where I told my brother, I was like, okay, we're saving up all our money that we can and we're going to buy our own. So we saved up money from like birthdays and Christmas and whatever. And we saved up $500 and we found there was a dirt bike for sale, like a little one by my grandma's house. So my mom was like, well, she's like, I can't, they saved up the money themselves. She's like, what can I do except take them to go get it? And so that was me and my brother. I think I was about 9 or 10 years old, and we went down the street and gave the guy the $500 and bought our first dirt bike. So that was, and
Wow.
at that age, that was, I was always a motorcycle guy because it was attainable. Like me and my brother could attain that. You can't drive a car till you're 16 or whatever, but having a bike was the coolest thing. It was like, and in those days there wasn't so, back in the early 90s, it was, my uncle had a lot of property where we lived, but there was some trails that everybody kind of knew. So it was like it didn't matter. We could go out on the bikes and just go exploring, and it was a small enough town that it's like, okay, well, if we're not home by sunset, then somebody will come looking for us and find us, kind of thing, right? And it was a small town, so everybody kind of knows everybody. But that was how that was some of the best memories of my life, is just being a 10-year-old kid and going through a trail by yourself in the middle of the forest, and that was like such freedom, just exploring like farther than your little legs could take you, like
We,
but
we, did,
so
we did things as kids like today that would never happen.
yeah, well, who, like, I don't even know, like, I'm not going to get into it, but my next door neighbors, they have their child, like, she's just learning how to walk, but they've got her on a leash. And I was like, yeah, like, and I was like, do you need the leash? Like, it's not gonna. She's just learning to walk. She's not gonna run out into traffic like that. Like she can barely even stand up, And but I was like, is that the healthiest way to raise a child, on a leash like
No.
that? And it's funny because she's just young, and they're Chinese, and so they're sweet people. But so the younger couple is about, I think he's 27, and so they're about in their mid 20s. But their parents are older and they don't speak a lot of English, so we have enough conversation, like, hey, how's it going, and beautiful day, whatever, small talk. But her little daughter, she's like, oh yeah, like when I go out for a ride, she's like, that's the best part of her day. Like we come to the front window and I wave and blow kisses to her, and so she waves, and they call me Uncle Moto. But it's so cute. But it's just to wrap that story up. I was like, oh, maybe one day she'll ride, and they were like, oh no, no, never. And I was like, why would you even say that? Like you have your kid on a leash and then say that, like, if your kid wants to ride a motorcycle, you should at least let them. Like, yeah, like how much are you going to helicopter parents? Like, it's going to get to the point where, like, I find, and I'm not saying that about my neighbors, like I don't want to paint them in a bad light, but I just feel like, when are we going to get to the point where it's like, I find so many people aren't letting their children live their own lives. They're trying to force them to live the lives that they want them to live. And I don't know if you've ever watched Jocko Willink. He's like a ex Navy SEAL guy. He's got a great podcast, Jocko Willink. But he talked about that. That was one of the hardest lessons he had to learn in his life in raising his kids, is that you have to let them be who they want to be.
Yes, and you can't protect them your whole life. Like, and this is why the mortality. I don't know why I'm talking mortality, because I'm not like, I'm working on training programs today.
Yeah, they're gonna be the death of you.
No, I I've died on stage before, not literally, but just figuratively. Like,
Doing stand up.
no, bad workshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, tough crowd, I tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Is this thing
But
on?
yeah, thank you and good night.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think we need to sort of to come together and talk about this more, in
Mhm.
because we are afraid. We're that's what's governing things right now. It's the fear,
Yeah.
right? Fear of the government, fear of what if I get it,
Yeah.
fear of oh, stay away from me. It's
Yeah.
all this fear. It's rampant.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
disgustingly rampant,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, let's talk about the fear. What are you afraid of?
Yeah.
What's happened to somebody who's maybe passed on and come back, and
Yeah.
like what's it like on that other side? And I remember studying Kabbalah, which is mysticism, Jewish mysticism, a number of years ago, and they said something kind of a little bit against, would go against the grain for a lot of people, would kind of irk them.
Yeah.
They said, we're just here, and I use that word tikkun, and tikkun means to correct, to mend. We're
Yeah.
just here in our life to correct some aspect of our soul. Once we get the lesson, we move on. So you remember the show Quantum Leap with Sam Beckett? And he would be in, and this came out, it was out in the sort of the mid 90s.
Okay.
It was a great show.
I'll have to watch.
And you have to check it out, Quantum Leap. And he would go into these different existences, right?
It sounds
So
familiar. Yeah.
he one day he was uh, Buddy Holly, right? And he was singing, starting to sing and play guitar and everything. And he's out by the farm because he was a country boy kind of
Yeah.
thing. And he's singing to the pigs, and he's singing Piggy Sue, right? Not Peggy Sue, Piggy
Yeah.
Sue. And the guy sitting next to him says, "Why don't you call it Peggy Sue?" And the minute that he said that, Sam went out of that character into the next. So he had done what he came to do, and then he would go into a new existence. And I think that's what happens to us. And so I remember the teaching. They said if a child dies, like at 2, yes, it's tragic, and yes, the pain of that is horrible. I'm
Yeah.
not diminishing that. However, from a soul point of view, that's it. That's all that child had to do
Yeah.
in terms of their life.
Yeah.
They only had to correct some aspect of themselves, and that once it was done, they would leave. So if they were 2 or 3, that's it. Some of
Yeah.
us live to 90 or 100. Maybe we have lots to learn. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to have, I think, more of that discussion and dispel the myths, rumors, and fears. You know?
I agree, and what you said really resonates because I love learning about things like that and different possibilities. And I've got to read. I want to read that book because somebody sent it. It's a book, right? Is it? Is it not? And
What?
was it Kabbalic or
Oh,
Kabbalah?
Kabbalah? No,
Kabbalah,
it's more. Well, there is books about it, but
or is it more of a like a
it's more of a. It's like Buddhism, really.
okay?
It's sort of very closely tied in, but it's more of a like not religious, but a spiritual
Yeah.
path that you really follow and you study,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And they have their main sort of scripture would be it's called the Zohar, and interesting, um, yeah, interesting
I
stuff.
would. It sounds interesting, and people have mentioned it, and I've seen. It's familiar. I haven't actually like dove into it, um, but I love reading things like that. Like I read a few years ago when my stepdad got sick because my father and grandfather and uncle read it, and one day we had a get together out in Muskoka with my family, and when my cousin was here, and we chatted like pretty much all afternoon about the book called the Urantia. Have you ever heard of it?
No,
It's a fascinating book, and it's
wow,
supposedly it's channeled material, but
yeah,
it's just it's huge. It's 2,300 pages, I think, but it talks about all the like our universe and how we were created, and like just the different planets, the ascension, and what happens. Like this story of Jesus. It's just one of the most fascinating books I've ever read, and but it really just changed. I love reading things like that. I read A Course in Miracles as well, and like
yeah,
I said, I've read so much the past 2 years that I've just it was like almost when you start reading those things, it triggers something else. Like your next the next thing you're gonna read presents itself like halfway through. You're like, oh man, like I got to read that next. When you
yeah.
start diving down that rabbit hole of those things, right? Because it's fascinating, right? And it's so outside the realm of mainstream media. It's like really, it's like an imagination expander, right? Like you're just like, wow, like, and whether or not it's, like who knows what truth is, but it's like, I think it's a lot more magnificent and wonderful than we've been led to believe, or most of our society is raised with. Like you live and die, and like we're the only. It's a very
It's a narrow focus. It's a very narrow sort of minded focus, and we're not living in the grandeur of life and God and all that there is, because
yeah,
there's so much more to things than just this. I mean, really, tell me, we were born and came down to the earth just to what? Work hard, pay taxes, be miserable, and go home at night, go to watch the news, and go to bed. It's like, no, there's got to be something more than this.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we're about to. I just sense that there's going to be some sort of magical opening, and that a few of us are going to go into that door, and it's like, yeah, come on, it's okay, you know.
Well, that's the thing, and like maybe we'll do a follow up call in a couple weeks because I know you got
Yeah,
to get going and it's already coming up on two. But I would love to, just do a one on one with you again, and we can kind of explore maybe next time, chat a little bit more about, those things like the less talked about things because in spirituality and some of the things that come along with that and spiritual awakenings and you kind of shed a lot of other things and it can kind of be scary for a lot of people and
hmm,
people that I've spoken with the past couple weeks and few months since I've really been going through all this myself personally is that it it can be tough because if you're going through it alone and you don't know somebody who's been down that road before you lose a lot of things like your friends and your family and identity because it's like you're not really it's like a perception shift you kind of change of what's like we talked about what's really important what are my values what am I doing every single day and for me that was 10 years ago where it's like I was working a corporate job and I was like I can't do this and I've been working towards that goal for so long and I was like I got there and I was like this isn't me this isn't me and it was like it took so much to say to walk away from that especially just getting out of university and having an amazing job and like like it was just there's so many levels of spiritual awakening it can feel like a lonely thing when you let go of your previous identity right it's
right,
like you said the thing you came to learn is done and you got to move on.
yeah, and you do like physically, but you also do here too. Sometimes, and that's the other thing. I don't know if it's a gift or a curse, but I've 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 lost contact and lost sort of that urge to be with certain people in my life. Not good friends, but contacts, let's say. And it's like I don't have time now for triviality. I really need to be focused on my path and to see my path through. Does that make sense? Like
Oh
we
yeah.
talked about the Leafs losing the other day, right? Or and it's like years ago that would have really been like bother me for a few days, or I'd be bummed out.
Yeah.
And now it's like it doesn't matter. It's a nice thing. It's fun to watch, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, not in that case, but
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. It's an escape for a bit. But does it really matter? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing I think that's happened this past year and a bit is our priorities are changing, and where we're putting our energy, time, and effort is also changing. And that might mean that the people that we've had in our life, family included, it might not be a good match for where we're at and where we want to go. And it's okay.
Yeah.
God bless them. But, if we've got work to do and we feel that there's a path for us and more of a purpose to us being here, which I feel there is, then we have to answer that call. And sometimes being a leader on the forefront of that can be lonely.
Yeah.
They say it's lonely at the top, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have this. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'll read it to you. I used to
Hmm.
work at a shared office, and I was having a conversation with a friend, and he needed some advice, and so I left. I didn't know what to say to him at the time, and I said, "Let me think about it," and you know, and so before I left for the day, everybody was gone, and I was wrapping up, and I found a napkin. It's a Starbucks napkin, and I wrote on it, "Sometimes you have to burn bridges so the sheep don't follow you across." And it's but it sounds maybe harsh but it fit with the conversation that him and I were having, right? And I said, and it was basically he gave the reason I have that is because he gave it back to me saying it was some of the best advice he got, but it's not burning the bridge, but it's just knowing when to walk away. And sometimes it might have to be a burning bridge. Not everything's an amicable parting way.
Amicable, yeah.
Yeah, like it just doesn't happen and
No.
to me that's the hardest thing to get over is that because I'm a nice guy, like I don't, I'm not looking for conflict, but sometimes it's other people's energy and it's like and it's like, yeah, fuck you, man, it's like fuck you, and that's it. Like sometimes that's all that needs to be said, and you just burn that bridge because that person's not supposed to be in your life, you know. And I'm not calling, it's not nice to call people sheep and stuff like that, but it's just, it is what it is. It's like the metaphor of like, not everybody's coming on your journey, and it's okay to say, hey, you're not welcome here, and set that boundary. I think that a lot of times, growing up, I didn't have proper boundaries because we don't, it's not that it's a bad thing, but we were raised in this thing like, oh, you got to share and you got to this and that. And it's almost like I don't think we had proper boundaries growing up. We were taught that it's like, you have to like, share with everybody. You don't have to share with everybody. You don't have to share with bullies. You don't have to share with the government who's got their hands in their pocket. Like, we need to stand firm in our own convictions. And I think we need more sovereignty and teach better boundaries for kids, because I realized that I didn't have a lot. Like, there's a difference between going with the flow and then, not setting proper boundaries for yourself. And then you find yourself high and dry one day, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Comes down to self love too, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that's it's an interesting thing, but maybe we should continue that one
Yeah.
on the next call, because I want you to be able to go do your
Are you
workshop.
happy with this today? Like, were
Oh,
you?
of course, man. Like, it was really, I think that this is, I want to do basically what we talked about, like have these conversations, right? And so I really appreciate you coming on, and like I think it would be cool to just do one every couple of weeks. We don't have to set it, but just
Yeah.
check in and have
Yeah,
different
I'm there.
conversations.
You say when, and I'll go. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, buddy. And so, like I said too, it'd be cool if I'll share it on my channel today, and tag you in it or whatever. I don't have a lot of
Yeah,
viewers yet, but then I can send you the file too, and then you can
please.
share it in a
Yeah,
couple weeks, and
yeah.
we can kind of do that, and it creates
Oh,
content for the both of us. But I just I'm looking forward to working with you, not only in the Quantum Lounge, but if there's any other things, if in any way, and I'm looking forward to more our friendship and having
yeah, here
fun.
too. And
Having,
shoot me over your phone number so I can call you on the phone and just have.
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
No, because
um,
there's stuff I want to discuss with you. So
okay, cool. Yeah, you better not be sending me prank phone calls.
no, no, no.
I'm just kidding.
2 a.m.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in the house.
I know. I could picture you doing that for some reason.
Oh man, I'm old. I'm fast asleep.
Yeah, yeah,
Mind
yeah.
you, last night I got up at 2. I couldn't get to bed.
Oh, was that last? Was it last night or no? The night before there was something weird. I was talking with my mom. I was up at 3:30 a.m. and like I get up early some days, but I'm all about the creative scheduling. So I try to not have the same schedule all week. So I allow one night. I'm like, okay, tonight I'm staying up late, and then the next day, whatever. But I woke up at 3:30 and I was wide awake, and I was like, I was like 3:30 is a little early, and I was like, but what am I gonna do? And I was like, I walked around, and then I tried to lay back down, and I was like, nope, not gonna happen. So
I know.
I-
You know what I do. I have the Peace, Passion, Prosperity group on Facebook,
yeah,
which is now at over 300 people.
nice,
Uh,
nice.
I do my posts if I can't sleep, like tonight, like or last night at 2 or whatever in the morning. I went, oh, I'll do my posts.
Yeah. Well, that's the perfect thing. That's what I did yesterday. Was I got up and I came and sat down, and I was like, oh, like now it's a perfect quiet time, and I'm gonna watch the sunrise. I might as well just do the things that like the similar, like replying, doing social media replies and replying to emails that kind of fall
Yeah,
through the cracks,
yeah,
and I was like, yeah, this is the perfect time to do it. I've really been focusing in the past 10 years about not like, it's good to have a schedule, but I talk about creative scheduling. So a few years ago, I did like I would take my say I had 5 things that I do in the morning, like yoga, deep breathing,
yeah. Morning
creative
ritual.
writing. Yeah, I have my 5 things,
Yeah,
and I
here
swap
too.
them around. So like one morning I wake up, do yoga. The next morning it's my walk. The next morning it's reading. The next morning it's always different, even though I'm doing the same things every day. The order of them is different, and it just makes for such a more creative day. And it's like not the monotony of drudgery of like 10 years ago when I sleep, hit snooze 5 times, and work a corporate job, and like just had none of that. So it's like I really look forward to the day, and like even today, like even though tomorrow's going to be pretty much similar to today, it's going to be different because I structured it differently. So it's exciting.
Yeah,
It's not like, oh, this again.
yeah. We don't want drudgery. I think that we want joy. We want to bring joy. We want to bring creativity. We want to bring collaboration. We want to bring shifting the vibe for people, and bring hope.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's so sorely lacking.
Yeah, and you want to be inspired, which to me is like a translation of in spirit, like you're just present, and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's that's.
and spirit means to breathe into, to breathe life into.
Yeah.
That's what spirit means, right? So
Well, yeah, it's interesting, and breathing is so huge. Like we'll talk about that next time. I'm gonna make a
yeah.
note, but I've been doing the Wim Hof, and I used to smoke cigarettes, and it helped me quit smoking. I stopped smoking on December 26th. I haven't had a cigarette since Christmas. So
Hey, good, good.
yeah,
That was a nice Christmas gift you gave yourself,
yeah, yeah,
and you're saving money.
exactly. So
Yeah. There's
that's
another
awesome.
guy, real quick, Scott Schwenk, who does breath work too, and he's an amazing teacher.
Scott Schwank.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I'll email you. He's doing a free 5 day free course on commune, on
Oh, okay.
breathing. Okay,
Cool,
so
cool.
I'll send you that.
So yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming on today,
Blessings.
David.
Yeah,
And I appreciate it. What do you have anything that you want to say to your viewers? Anything that you want to plug that you got coming up? Anything that any message that you want to deliver to anybody out there watching?
just question things. Question what's going on. It's not always like, yeah, don't take things just at face value. Dig a little deeper, learn a little bit, learn about history and what's happened in the past, and just question things before you just leap, you know? And no fear. I mean, we're all going to end up where we end up. It's like, don't fear it. Live. We're not living, I find, you know?
Yeah, I agree, and it's like I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but it's like go do the things like like I said just read all the books like that I've been putting off for years. It's like we have that little bit extra time now, and it's like maybe don't binge watch the Netflix, maybe don't have the six beer tonight, and like read that book or take up painting or start playing piano, like, and just commit to changing the processes and the patterns and the things that we've been
Yes.
conditioned, and break free of those habits. Because what I think a lot of people thought was when this all started was, oh yeah, okay, we're going on lockdown for 2 weeks, so it's like vacation, and then we're gonna get back to life. That's not, this could, like, I don't want to be a doomsday prophesizer, like I said, but we might be living with this for another year or two or five, right? Who knows?
God forbid, but
God forbid, yeah.
only
But
God knows, right?
exactly, and
I,
if I had my way, I'd be like, open her back up.
yeah, here too.
So,
But I'm going to take advantage of this time too, because there's stuff I want to create, and there's a course I started last year that I kind of let go of,
yeah.
and that's getting my cognitive behavioral therapy certificate.
Oh, cool, cool. Do you ever hear of Dr. Persinger? He was a
No,
big, he was my university. What I think he was a cognitive behavioral therapist, and but yeah, he was one of my favorite teachers. I didn't study psychology, but I took a course with him, and he was my favorite university professor. He's just
excellent.
yeah, he had this thing called he was a really big guy. He was on 2020 and stuff, and he
Oh,
invented
cool.
something that to monitor your brain waves. It was called the octopus. It was like this whatever put on. So yeah, he was just really interesting guy. But yeah, it was like it's interesting learning. So you're gonna actually do your get a degree in it, kind of thing.
Well, a certificate, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, cool, cool.
yeah.
So, well, I wish you luck on that, and
Thanks,
I
man.
guess, yeah, I guess, thanks again for coming on, and really appreciate it, and good luck out there spreading the love and the
Yeah,
vibe. You
you
just,
too.
yeah, and I guess we'll see you not Sunday because we're doing Mondays now, but are you going to
Yeah,
be able to make
Monday.
Monday?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, you have a good few days, brother. Thanks for
You
coming
too.
on.
Yeah, enjoy the weekend.
Okay, thanks, man. You too.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay,
Cheers.
bye.
Bye.